係 Crystal 桃桃，歡迎大家翻嚟我嘅 YouTube channel。咁今日咧，我就落咗嚟公園啦，就諗住去隨機下呢度生活嘅人。因為好多時咧，我哋拍嘅影片咧都係關於我自己嘅感受啊，或者可能只係我身邊認識嘅朋友仔啦。好多時大家都係同我哋一樣，都係嚟咗個時間比較短啲，都想即係趁有機會咧，就同啲喺度住得耐啲嘅人，就問下其實佢哋咧喺呢度生活嘅時候咧，感覺係點樣咧？究竟佢哋係嚟咗呢度幾耐啦？呢度生活咧，佢哋覺得最開心同埋最困難面對緊嘅，同埋呢度咧揾幾多錢咧先至足夠過佢哋想要嘅生活咧？做訪問最緊要係唔好怕醜。其實咧喺多倫多呢度咧，真係淨係個公園都咁大咧，其實你真係唔係咁容易咧話我揾就揾到個人㗎。但係咧喺呢度好嘅地方就係真係地大物博啦。I'm Crystal. How are you today? I'm making a video about how people feels like living in Toronto. So do you mind I ask you a few questions about that?
I prefer not to.
Or I just blur your face?
I prefer not to.
Thank you. 唔緊要，我哋第一個失敗咗，我哋再睇下問下其他人先。喺加拿大嘅人咧，感覺上咧佢哋都好 nice 嘅，咁但係咧佢哋真係會比較注重啲私隱咯。I'm making a video about how people feels like living in Toronto. Do you mind I ask you a few questions about that?
Maybe another time.
第二次失敗，唔緊要，我哋再睇下有冇其他人可以問先。究竟今日可唔可以成功揾到幾個人問下呢？我哋終於揾到一個人可以訪問下啦。How long have you been living in Toronto?
About 30 years.
What is the difficulties about living in Toronto?
An expensive city. That it can be very expensive to maybe join different things and go out because it costs a lot of money. The other thing is like every big city.
Yeah.
It can be very hard to meet people unless you have your own interests.
Oh yeah, that is really true.
And you can, go to meetups and get together with people who share your interests. But other than that, it can be, but that's any big city. I think it's a very pretty city.
So about the last question, how much do you think we have to earn per month so that we can have a relaxed and carefree living in Toronto?
It depends. Very hard to find a place to rent under $2,000 a month. Kind of, you need $4,000 minimum. The place is $2,000 plus. Metro is, the TTC is expensive. That's not being crazy. To live on $4,000 a month is still very difficult in Toronto.
4,000 is like per person or like two?
If you're sharing the rent, that's going to make a difference. But the big thing is Toronto is that food costs are high and rent is very high.
Yeah, especially like these 2 years is going crazy, the rent.
Do you rent? You share the rent.
Actually, he's the one who paid the rent. I'm
even
paying the
better.
food.
$1,000 enough for a couple? I mean, give you a ton of money to do other things like to travel.
That is really true. Going out to have drinks with your friends or to shopping, that is spent a lot, especially the tax.
So much.
Yes. 啱咧，終於咧揾到一個人啦，係啦，原來佢喺度咧住咗咁多年喎，成30幾年。咁而家咧，我就諗住再揾下一個目標人物。而家呢個時間3點幾4點咧，好多人喺度放狗。佢哋而家係咪應該係 March break 緊嗰啲小朋友？都有啲小朋友落呢度玩。見到呢度好多人咧，好似普遍都係有3個小朋友，可能真係呢度嘅。關於呢度政策啦，即係又有牛奶金啊，婆啊或者老公咧，佢哋呢度嘅產假其實都幾多。我哋而家咧又揾多咗個朋友就係 How long have you been living in Toronto?
5 years.
5 years? Okay, so how do you feel like living in here for these few years? The happiness and the difficulties, we want to know about that.
I miss home. I'm from Brazil.
Oh, I never been there before.
I think it's better than here, honestly.
Oh, you mean like the lifestyle or the salary or friends?
Like there are 2 main things that are better here. Salaries, the economy, and security. Like it's pretty safe here. Everything else is better there. Especially the weather.
You mean the winter, right?
Yeah, the winter is too long.
I just been in here for a year and I want to know more about like people who live here for like a few years, how they feel about that.
It's usually worse.
Okay, I got it. Most difficulties about living here?
Like networking is really important here to find jobs and...
So the last question is, how much do you think we have to earn per month so that we can actually enjoy carefree, relaxed style in Toronto?
That's a
Tough questions.
Tough question.
That is very tough.
I don't know, maybe 4 or 5,000 per month. Pretty much, you have to be. You need a partner.
Oh, to share the cost.
Yeah.
That is the only reasons for marriage.
No.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. 好開心，頭先終於成功問到第二個人，我覺得佢有少少搞笑嘅。但係的而且確咧，喺多倫多呢度嘅生活咧，其實真係個開支都幾大嘅，因為咧一嚟未必真係咁多人咧過到嚟就已經有個錢去買樓啦。第二咧呢度嘅租金咧其實都唔平㗎。咁頭先我哋訪問咗阿 Jean 啦，咁阿 Jean 咧佢都有講話喺呢度咧，其實你要揾到一個屋租 under 2000蚊咧，其實都已經好難㗎啦。呢度嘅生活開支啦，即係你住啊，再加食咧，其實都個花費都真係唔少嘅。其實咁樣做街訪咧都幾興奮，因為咧你係要去同啲陌生人傾偈啦，然後咧你亦都有機會俾人拒絕啦。但係佢哋即係同你 share 咧，佢哋喺呢度嘅生活啊，遇到嘅困難同埋開心咧，我覺得係即係好過淨係咁單方面咧。我哋淨係問身邊嘅朋友仔啦，因為咧好多時大家都係同我哋一樣，都係嚟咗個時間比較短啲，可能只係1至2年啊咁樣。咁所以咧都想即係喺度住得耐啲嘅人，或者喺隨機捉到一個人咧，就問下其實佢哋咧喺呢度生活嘅時候咧，感覺係點？而家見到呢一區咧，就一個人都唔見有，車咧全部都泊晒喺出邊咯。同埋呢啲咧，佢哋都係一個單車房啦。咁我成日都見到咧，好多時佢哋架車都係會泊埋喺出面嘅。咁有機會可能你知啦，可能一家3口咁樣，阿爸阿媽又要翻工啊，咁個女可能又要翻工，仲一齊住嘅話，咁其實即係單車房其實真係未必夠擺，所以好多時我見到佢哋即係啲車都係會再泊埋喺出面咁咯。其實加拿大係一個都幾寧靜嘅社區咯，即係雖然有佢困難嘅地方，但係就如果你話同一個價錢喺呢度買樓咧，的而且確買到嘅地方真係大啲嘅。咁但係咧，除非你可能真係香港嘅時候，你已經儲咗筆錢啦，咁你過到嚟呢度咧，當然就會真係舒服啲係啦。咁但係如果你話啊唔係喎，之前我嘅積蓄可能唔係好多，咁其實夠呢度生活咧，咁你要再買樓嘅話咧，咁真係即係 base on 呢度人工咧有機會低啲嘅情況下咧，其實就個困難咧就真係有。而家帶大家睇下呢一區嘅屋，即係而家行緊呢一度啦，係好多 house 啦。其實近來咧都有喺度諗，會買 house 啊，定係即係住 condo 啊，定係 semi-detached 咁樣。因為好多人過到嚟呢度就覺得，外國嘅話，咁我梗係想住 house 啦。咁但係咧，如果住 house 咧，感覺上就真係正啲嘅，地方大啲啦，咁同埋即係有幾層啊咁樣。咁但係咧，如果真係住 house 咧，我覺得嗰個安全上面咧，真係要做得好啲。因為近來新聞都有講拗格啦，入去偷嘢啊咁樣。我覺得喺安全上面呢個係真係要做好啲先至會諗真係住 house 啦。咁但係住 condo 咧個價錢咧就真係比住 house 或者 semi-detached 咧就真係平嘅。咁但係咧住 condo 咧就最 concern 嘅就係佢每一個月咧佢要交嗰啲管理費其實都幾貴，即係可能你圍翻皮可能都成500幾600蚊加紙一個月咯，淨係管理費啫喎。咁所以嗰個地方就真係你係有人有空間去幫你睇住個屋咯，即係你唔好話隨便就有人入到去啊，安全啲。尤其是可能你去咗旅行嘅，咁但係如果你住 house 咧，可能就真係要同即係隔離啲鄰舍大家打好關係啦。In case 可能你嗰有幾個月可能你係翻咗香港或者你可能去咗旅行嘅，咁起碼有人幫你睇住間屋，冇咁容易即係俾人入去爆格咁樣咯。Hey, so I'm Crystal and this is
Gord.
So, can you tell me how long have you been in Toronto?
I guess you could sort of say my whole life, most of my life. I was actually born in Hamilton, up in Scarborough, University of Toronto, and then in Scarborough for a little bit after that. In the last 20, 30 years, I've always lived in in this neighborhood. When I was very young, I lived further downtown.
What is the biggest happiness and difficulties about living in here?
I think overall, I have the impression that it's good quality of life here, that there's lots to do. I sing in a choir here nearby. I actually take taekwondo classes nearby. So socially it's a pretty good situation. Lots of good food. I like the multicultural, and I actually had lots of friends who are Chinese. One thing that's interesting about Toronto is there are more mixed marriages.
We'll have different culture, you know, you can share mine and I can share yours too, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of...
You can also share like one things with us about the difficulty living in here.
Well, it is expensive. The only real significant downside is the cost of living is, you know, it's pretty high. It's hard to buy a house. You know, I'm not even sure my wife and I could afford the house we live in if we didn't buy it so long ago, right?
Expensive in here, right? And they just going back to living with their parents again. It's too expensive.
My daughter is 23. So I don't know.
She is younger than me. Guess how old am I?
I find it hard with Chinese people. That you're like, I bet you're 27.
I'm 30.
You're 30. Yeah, she graduated from university like about a year and a half ago. For a little while, she was just working part-time. Now she's actually working full-time. She works in a church, not too far from us. Okay, money, she could live on her own around here, right? So she's just living with us for right now. But she is actually able to save a lot of money because she's living with us and we're not charging her rent.
In my country, you know, normally we won't live without our parents before marriage.
Yes. We did have parents around raising our kids, so we didn't have to pay as much on childcare because childcare here is really expensive.
Yeah, that is very expensive.
So yeah, that's one thing. If you bring your parents over here, that would be great.
But you know, actually, in Asians, we have to take care of our family.
You probably maybe heard the expression of being a sandwich generation. It usually happens in your 40s, right?
Yeah.
You have kids. And then you have elder parents that you're taking care of them too.
How much that we should earn per month so that we can get relaxed and carefree in Toronto?
Yeah, well, it's a good question because a lot of it depends on how reducing your expenses. I think it would be hard to live here well if you didn't make like 60. It would be hard. As a couple, like certainly probably like at least 100. My wife and I, we actually are pretty high income earners, but I still find it very expensive. But we have a lot of bad habits. We spend too much money on a lot of stupid stuff.
咁而家咧就已經問埋最後嘅一個人啦，咁已經做完今日嘅訪問啦。咁其實咧，我覺得都幾開心嘅，即係咧，其實我做呢個街訪之前咧都有啲緊張啦，因為咧要真係去訪問啲陌生人啦，係完全唔識嘅人，係啦，因為係有少少怕醜嘅，其實自己都咁，但係咧我真係好想知下，真係喺度住得耐啲嘅人咧，佢哋對於喺呢度生活嘅有啲咩睇法啊，同埋即係有冇啲咩 suggestions 可以俾到我哋啲新移民嘅人咧，咁所以咧就大膽豁出去咧，就問下佢哋嘅。今日嘅街訪咧，最後係問咗3個人嘅。係啦，咁都算係一個突破啦，俾自己。因為其實咧，我覺得我都係一個即係又好想知好多嘢啦，好想知人哋呢度嘅生活係點啊，即係佢哋嘅睇法啊。但係咧，你唔夠膽咧去主動問人咧，其實你自己你係唔會得到呢啲答案嘅。咁所以我覺得拍 YouTube 咧都俾到一個機會，我係大膽啲啦個人。咁好講翻重點就係。喺呢度生活咧，其實大家咧都係比較concern個開支都真係比較大嘅，尤其是咧即係你屋租啦，跟住你食啦，咁其實呢方面咧都佔咗嗰個開支都幾大下，起碼1年咧我要揾40至50K 啦，先至係夠用嘅。咁但係呢一個收入咧，只係可能講緊係夠你住啊同埋食啦。咁如果咧你係想玩多啲娛樂啊，其實咧可能就真係未必太夠啦。咁所以咧今日我訪問咗3個人啦。咁有啲人咧佢就覺得起碼1年啦，我要有4萬收入先至可以 cover 到啦。咁有啲咧就話要大約係4萬至5萬啦。咁去到咧頭先嗰個叔叔嗰度，佢咧就話其實如果以單身人士啊，佢覺得起碼 at least 要有60先至可以喺度生活得好嘅。如果係一個 couples 嘅形式嘅話咧，咁可能就可以平少少啦。佢就話大約可能100K 咁樣。咁當然啦，每個人對於咧無憂無慮嘅生活咧嘅定義都唔同嘅。如果你係有一個目標想活成一個點樣嘅生活嘅話咧，咪睇下自己點樣可以努力去隨住個目標去做咯。咁今日嘅分享咧就去到呢一度啦。如果咧你哋都中意呢條影片嘅話咧，就記得要 subscribe 我嘅 YouTube channel 啦。我哋下次再見，拜拜。